Hey, Tommy.
Yo.
Yo.
Doug.
Hey, Scott.
I'm blocking time off tomorrow to work on the that task.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Doug.
And Ginger.
Hi, Doug.
Hello. And Clemens.
Hello.
Hello. You sound awfully chipper.
I just came out of a different call, and this one is certainly more exciting than that one.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that one put you in a great mood. So.
No, it was all process stuff mostly.
Oh, okay. So I'm not quite sure I understood the answers to my question, mainly Scott more than anybody else. I was asking about usage of Kafka and stuff. And so Clemens, let me ask you, as a receiver of a message from Kafka, do you find that people care about which topic it was associated with, or does that not really matter? It's really just the event data and the topic was just sort of a interesting little artifact of the delivery mechanism?
That will matter. That might matter for processing, but if it does, then the receiver interacting with the API will know. So I don't think that's a cloud events problem.
Okay, that's where I was wondering.
Question that you're asking.
Yeah, I was trying to wonder whether the topic should appear somewhere in the cloud event.
No.
I think if it really matters for the event, the producer should add it, but otherwise it's just a transport concern. Yeah, just like what path an event on HTTP ended up on.
Correct.
Okay.
So as we see more and more, so we are now starting to see what I've been anticipating for the last 2 years, and that is just stuff gets replicated more. So you see more mirror maker kind of setups and more pumps between brokers, etc. So the queue or the topic or whatever it's called that you initially submitted a cloud event into starts to matter less and less because there's routing, forwarding scenarios plenty where that information that the client has, like its perspective on the world, doesn't really matter all that much anymore.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, because I was trying to work through a Knative scenario where the whole bunch of end producers come through a broker, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we preserve some of that originating information like the topic? And if you guys are saying that no, in most cases it doesn't really matter, so don't worry about it, then that's okay. I just don't have the background you guys do relative to Kafka to know whether it's okay to drop that information, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only Kafka. Like the scenario that Klaus and I are spending countless hours on every week is one where events start somewhere by being submitted from an application into an event pipeline that lives on that side of the world, and then somewhere in the infrastructure that then gets popped up over to our side of the world. But there's multiple hops involved through infrastructure, and then it kind of pops out in Azure somewhere with there being completely no connection to the infrastructure where that originally was submitted into. And on the way back, it's the same thing. So that's even there's even lots of moving pieces like forwarders, which the application owner has no concept of.
Right. Okay, that helps. Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Klaus.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
How you doing? How you doing? Wow, it's 3 after, and we only have 9 people. This is even smaller than last week. This is really weird.
Losing momentum?
I don't know what it means. I don't know. It's not vacation time, right? Means that's not till like what, September, August timeframe. So
Yeah,
very
it's
weird.
conference time though.
I guess maybe.
Is
Well,
it Google I/O going on?
I don't know. Is it?
I think it is.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's 3 after, so let's go ahead and get started. Maybe it'll be a short call. Let's see, just a reminder. Scott already pinged you. Clemens, don't forget, you do have a couple of AIs, not just up here.
I do, and you know that I pinged you on one of them.
I know.
But,
I just feel I have to formally on recording nag you. How's that?
Yes, I understand. But there's also some lack of clarity especially in the first one. So, but I'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Community time. Anything from the community people want to bring up? That's not on the agenda. All right. We didn't have an SDK call last week, so I don't think there's anything to mention there. We do technically have an interop call after this one, so if you're interested in that, hang on the line. Let's see, KubeCon. We talked about KubeCon EU last time. Just want to let people know I did ask for a virtual serverless co-located summit for North America. Whether we get it or not, I don't know. And Ginger, you mentioned worrying about the cost of it. And basically, Chris said, don't worry about it. The Linux Foundation covers everything. And I guess if there need sponsors, they'll deal with it. But he basically told me not to worry my head about it. So, okay.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, which I like. So we'll see how that plays out. But there's no guarantee we're going to get it. But I did ask for a virtual one because I think he said they're expecting maybe 5,000 people in person and then 30,000 remote. So I figured with those odds and with the potential spacing between people, the number of people in the room is probably going to be pretty small. So might as well just go for virtual and just keep everybody on par with each other in terms of what they can experience. Let's see, Timur's not on the call. I don't see anybody else from the workflow stuff, so we can jump right into issues. So Klaus, I put this one at the top mainly because I thought it'd be a good thing to get out of the way, and it could be a relatively large PR that you may want to do quickly since you volunteered. Do you want to talk to this one?
Yes, so I have to admit I haven't looked at the discovery spec for a while and did so just 2 days ago. And it occurred to me that it's a bit behind the subscription API in the sense that it's not adhering to certain standards that are quite common to OpenAPI definitions. Like, for example, the operation IDs that are already there. I think that's already covered by PR by Clemens. That's what I discovered at that occasion. But I think also the other API is using, for example, camel casing and things like this. So I just wanted to propose to go through the discovery API and somehow make it a bit more the same look and feel like the subscription API.
Just for everybody on the same page, let's take a quick look at the Discovery API. So let's see if we can find a good one here. So I guess something like this,
subscription config, subscription dialects, exactly. Yes.
Okay. Anybody have an objection to Klaus making that change? Okay. My only question would be on things like this where you have things like URL or ID. Granted, I know it's personal preference, but I tend to prefer when it's all caps URL, because like over here you show ID is ID with a lowercase d. I prefer all caps when it's abbreviations like that. But I want to know what you thought.
I think that operation ID is even from the OpenAPI spec. So, but yeah, I don't care really. I know that they're both ways, and there's always a debate about which one is better.
Anybody else have any opinion on that? Okay.
I think these even though I agree with you, I believe that the naming rules for a bunch of languages, like the linters, don't agree with us.
In
Like I
JSON,
know
I would expect
our internal rules for C#, and I think also for Java are like shorthand, like these even if you have an abbreviation, you need to if you camel case it, then you need to only do the first letter capital.
Yeah. Scott, were you going to say something, or did you already say it in the chat?
I just said it in chat. Usually in JSON, it's subscription all lowercase and then capital URL, lowercase LRL. That's what you'll get from every autogen thingy.
Yeah.
This might be kind of a holdover to try to make it so that these things look like the cloud event spec, where everything is super hard to read.
A little dig in there. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Klaus, since it's your PR, you get to decide what you want to do. And then we either approve or disapprove. Because Christoph is afraid we're going to rat hole on this. So any objection to Klaus heading this direction, opening up a PR to align the discovery spec? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oops, good golly. What is today? Okay, there you go. Thank you, Klaus. And let's keep moving forward. Yes, Linky said he will not be able to make it today, but he definitely wanted us to try to tackle his PRs in his absence. So let's see what we can do here. So he suggested, I guess, 2 weeks ago, that there be an implicit and. So he wanted the filter here to be not just a singleton, but an array, and where there's an implied and across the one or more filter expression thingies in here. Did anybody get a chance to think more about this, whether it's a good or a bad idea?
We had a long call about this.
Okay.
And he initially proposed to drop the all and the any distinction, and I think he doesn't do that anymore here. But rather basically turns the filters, the top level object, into an and, so that you can go and have a list of those filters. Because we ended up so the debate we had took a long while, and it basically just all centered around the all and the any. I think I convinced him that having the and as implicit and then the any as something that you have explicit gets quite confusing as you kind of go down into more complexity. Because then people are like, if you want to go and translate an expression that is like with ands and ors, then that's already kind of complicated with all and any. And so we went through some conceptual examples, and then we landed at the place that, yes, it's great to have this implicit and at this top level where it's reasonable. But then as you get further down in nesting, then the things degenerate into weirdness if you don't have the all and the any constructs.
Okay. So and any and all still exist lower down, but just an implied and up
Yeah,
top.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I take it, based on what you just said, you're okay with it, right?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. If you even though yes, I am. Yeah.
Is there something I should be looking for?
Yeah. Look, I wasn't sure, like, since I don't have the PR open myself. I didn't want to say yes when there's kind of down in the things that I couldn't see. There's still the killing of you and all in the any.
No.
Not that I wouldn't trust him. But just to make sure.
No, I looked at this last night, and I have a couple of questions I just want to bring up to the group. But let's pause here for a minute. Does anybody else have any concerns about the high level direction that Slinky wants us to take here of having an implied and up top? Okay, a couple of things then. More syntactical sugar more than anything else. One is he explicitly bans having 0 filters in there. I thought that was an unnecessary restriction.
Yeah, that's, oh, no, wait a second. If you put it there, well,
It just seems to me someone's going to put an empty square brace, and it just seems weird that we would say, okay, that's an error, and some people are going to accept it, some people won't, and for interoperability's sake, we might as well just say, let it through.
yeah, I agree, because it's also a good reminder, like if you're filling out a template, then you'll go and say filter : and then you have to go and put something there, and having an empty array there is just fine, I think.
Yeah, I like the way you
Otherwise, you
phrase
can't
that.
have it in a template.
Yeah. Yep, I like that. Well, I like the way you put that, yeah, because as a template, as a reminder to put something there would be good. The other thing is he has an extra curly brace around each filter. And it seems to me that's only useful if we expect to have more than one property or attribute instead of just filter name and then filter object. Can anybody think of a reason why we couldn't just drop it down to this?
Because that's not valid JSON.
Oh, that'd be a good reason.
Exactly.
Never mind then. I didn't think about it.
Small details.
Sure, John, bring up the obvious. Gosh. Tell you what then, forget that.
But I think it's valid. You can make it valid JSON by removing an array and making it an object.
Yeah, but then
If
it's
you
out
can
of
only
order,
have
isn't
one
it?
prefix and one suffix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure what 2 prefixes will mean.
Well, yeah, it may be weird, but it's valid.
You could do it in XML. We should switch it to XML.
Ooh.
We should switch.
Presumably,
everything.
you could have 2 prefixes for different different attributes. So a prefix on a type and a prefix on the source,
True.
For example.
Even better.
Although those could then be prefix with all the attributes in the object, but I think that would be weird as a way of representing it.
Yeah. So anyway, I can delete my comment here, right? Completely invalid comment, right? I'm going to say that as a yes. Okay, so never mind then. So then the only thing is ask him to remove this must have at least one part. With that, does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns with this? Okay, any objection then to approving with this one change? All right, cool. He will be so happy. Approved with the one suggested edit. John, do not worry about it. All right. Okay, I think this is another easy one. So, okay. So in the past, he had a whole bunch of implementation suggestions here, which he ended up making kind of normative. And then we arm twisted them and said, no, don't do that. Make them more just implementation guidance kind of things. So we created the suggestion section. And I suggested he change it from just the word suggestions to something else, like implementation suggestion or guidance or something like that, because suggestions by itself just sounds kind of too loosey-goosey. But basically, here's the text. Here, I'll make it a little bigger, that way you can see it. In case you haven't had a chance to read it. It's completely non-normative, so just do a quick look over and see what everybody thinks. Okay. Anybody have any questions or concerns about this? Any objection to approving? All right, cool, thank you. And Another one. Oh, this is just an issue. What was this one? Oh, I brought this up because I wanted to get people's opinion on it. So he's suggesting, this is for the Cloud Events SQL language. He's suggesting a plus operator for concatenation. For anybody who's more of an expert in SQL than I am, how popular is this? It seemed like he was sort of adding an extension here, and that scares me a little from an interoperability perspective.
Popular is not the question. Is it SQL?
Okay, what's the answer to your question?
That's a great question.
Because he admits that Oracle SQL and MySQL do not support it.
Yeah, since SQL is weird because you can't just go and get the spec easily. Table. So I think the official way to add strings is concat.
Okay. So what do people?
So what's the goal here?
Yeah.
So Doug, you say in the comment, if the goal is interop and adoption, it seems we should focus on the more common pieces of SQL instead of extending it.
Yes.
If it's interop with other SQL things, are we expecting people to use C SQL and expect it to work in Oracle and vice versa? Or are we trying to write something that is as SQL-like as all the other SQL variants, but is also easy to use? In which case, plus seems fine to me.
So SQL Server supports it, so I'm okay with it.
All righty then. Now, I said what's interesting, John, is to your question, I would have said the latter until you added that last sentence or the last bit where you said, "Oh, in that case, plus is okay to me," because to say, you know, try to adhere to as many other SQL versions out there seems like a good goal, but I don't know whether plus is part of those many variants out there or not. Is it?
I will check Google Cloud SQL because I feel I ought to.
Okay.
Yes, you should. I'm guessing it is. Let's look for IBM DB2.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I was actually serious for a second.
I'm searching too.
Okay.
There we go.
Oracle PLSQL, that's what it's called, is it? Yes. PLSQL for developers. Oh no, to read this documentation, I'll probably have to go and sign some agreement with Oracle.
I'm glad you had the word Oracle there. I thought you were talking about IBM.
No. I was working with strings in PL/SQL. This page may have been moved or deleted. Oh, good. Great.
Yeah, I don't know. On one page I found they only show concat or vertical bars, double vertical bars so far. John, did you find anything?
I found BigQuery standard SQL uses the double bars as well. It just makes me wince.
Yeah. So,
Oracle uses double bars.
Yeah. So I found this page, which is kind of interesting. It lists a whole bunch of different people or different companies. Shows IBM with concat or double bars. Shows Microsoft SQL with plus. MySQL just concat. Oracle concat or vertical double bars. So it looks like Microsoft might be the only one that supports it.
I will abstain.
So what does that mean?
That means that concat is probably the NC SQL answer to this problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
I
what
guess we
wanna-
can always add it in later. I tend to be cautious about adding things that are hard to remove later on. We could see what the feature requests come in as.
Okay. So I'm hearing a vote for not now. I say +1 to that. Anybody else want to chime in?
Oh, wait, so that's not true actually. So I'm here on O'Reilly, and they say, like I don't have the ANSI SQL Center, but so ANSI SQL apparently uses the concatenation operator double bars.
Okay.
And then SQL uses plus as a synonym. So that means that SQL should, where am I? SQL Server.
What does Mr. John have here? Whoops, wrong window.
Where's that SQL? Yeah. String concatenation operator. It is plus in SQL. SQL doesn't know the double bar thing, even though it would. I'm sure there's a switch to go do it. It's just it is weird.
So I heard a proposal to say not now.
Yeah, that's probably not bad.
Okay.
I certainly, at least not now for plus. I'm kind of +0 on using double bars if that is, it looks increasingly like that is the standard string concatenation operator. So I would prefer to have double bar over plus. I think I'd very mildly prefer to have neither until we know more.
Okay. So general agreement on the call is to not add it now. Let's see what the community thinks. But he's not even talking about double bar right now. Or I guess, wait, what does he have in the spec right now? Just concat? Probably does. CSQL. Can never find it. There it is. Concat. Actually, I guess I should search for double bar. Yeah, he doesn't have a double bar. So are we going to say back that we're okay with double bar? Or do you want to hold off on double bar as well?
I would suggest holding off.
Yeah, just hold off.
Yeah, I think we could say hold off, but a general preference for double bar over plus because it seems more standard.
Yes, even though it is totally weird.
Totally.
And an aesthetic preference for plus.
Yeah,
Yep.
so do I. But you know, decisions have been made.
As mentioned in chat, we should just go with ampersand to cater to our VB core demographic.
Okay, so hold off for now. Okay. Cool.
That would reference propositional logic with a V.
Oops, hold on a minute. Over plus. There. Okay. Moving forward. Thank you all. Not now. Clemens, this one. Come on. Do you want to reintroduce this one?
I made some. Yeah, I cleaned that up. This is mostly so. There's I did some cleanup for just general formatting as I was working on this, because we had some. It was difficult. It was impossible to kind of reference some of those headline headers without them being further qualified, because we have some names that are duplicates at different levels. So that's, and then I made some addition, did some reshuffling, and then introduced the replication model here. And the replication model required that I have a notion of authority that I'm introducing, because it needs to be clear when you replicate. It needs to be clear where that schema is at home, so that you don't bounce it around all the time. And so the core change that is at the bottom, and those are, so authorities are being introduced. And then at the bottom, I'm introducing the change events, the replication model and state change events. That's the big change that's causing the rest of it.
Yeah, trying to see. I guess maybe down here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, all this, the entire section 4 is.
Right.
So the notion is, so this needs to be, so folks need to go and read through this, but the notion here is that we have not central registries, but that you have kind of with every, think of it, every event broker that you have has a schema registry. And when you push events out from, or allow pulling events out, the logic here is, or the rationale here is that if you are sending through a broker and you're getting from a broker, then there are very often firewall rules and VNet constraints that bind you effectively to that broker as your only source where you can get that data from. So having an external schema registry that is not on the same endpoint is often a real issue. Like we see this all the time. And so, so the notion is that you go and have your schema registry embedded with your broker, or on the same endpoint, or very, very close nearby. If not on the same endpoint for the same firewall rules, then certainly in the same VNet. But then as you are replicating events out, you should be able to kind of have those schemas kind of propagate along the path. And of course, you don't want to go and embed them into the data stream, because that's the whole point of having schemas. But you want to be able to go and create these pairings of saying, I have broker A and broker B and broker C, and there's data flowing across those. So let's link up those schema registries so the schemas can also propagate. So as you go and start, you publish a schema into your first registry of those 3 brokers. Then as soon as that gets updated, it raises an event that the others can subscribe to. And then you can go and then propagate the event. That's one of the ideas. Another model is that you have these registries which are embedded in the brokers, and then you have a central registry where all of your schemas land, or you have a central registry from which all the schemas that shall be used by your clients of your brokers shall originate from. So we have a scenario where we're doing central governance of schemas. We have a thing called now that's called Azure Purview, which is an implementation of Apache Atlas in the end. And where you have one person who's the grand poobah of everything that is schema, and they are approving every schema that may be used in the enterprise that exists. And so then from that grand schema registry in the sky, the schemas get then propagated out into the various places where schemas are being used. And again, with the same rationale that you are just, you're showing up at a message broker, you have one firewall rule or one VNet relationship. You should be able to get fetch your schema for reading events from that place. So it gets propagated. So this whole replication scheme is something that we will need for our purposes, because we're having all of these different places, different regions, different areas where brokers live, which then exchange where event flow happens through them. But you need to have a local registry for optimization reasons and also for these firewalling and VNet, etc. concerns. So that's the rationale for this. So the idea is not that you simply have a REST API for a central registry, but really also an event-driven event-driven model for state changes using cloud events that will then allow you to kind of subscribe to changes and then pull the changes towards you. So this is the first. This might be the first cloud event spec that's defining cloud events.
Right. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Now I know you haven't made changes recently, but we also haven't brought it up on the agenda recently either. Are you in a hurry that you want to get it approved today, or are you okay waiting at least giving people another week?
Giving another week is okay.
Okay. Although
I
let me
just
also
want to put this back up on the stack effectively, because it has been sitting around for largely unchanged for a while, and it kind of dropped off the radar. And I'd like to get this in.
Okay. So, but also, to be fair though, let's turn it around. Does anybody in the call anticipate actually reviewing this over the next week?
I might, but I don't want to take a full. I took my week off next week, so I guess I'll have some time to work on that.
Because if I mean, well, that's fine as long as we have somebody who's going to say yes, I'm probably going to be looking at it next week. So give me another time or give me another week. That's fine. I just didn't want to make Clemens wait if the odds are no one's going to look at it and we're going to be in the exact same state next week.
Okay, then I have to buy a beer to Clemens if I don't review it. It will be more than fair.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take that.
There you go.
Okay.
Twist his arm.
There will be opportunities again, right? So
Yeah, I hope so. I already put in my schedule the KubeCon in LA. It's like next door to me, so like now I want to have beer. Sorry if I'm an alcoholic, but that's.
I think that's beer is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I just have a couple of quick questions. One is, it seems to me that this mechanism you're defining here could actually be useful for other specifications like the discovery spec, because I know at one point we talked about replication or whatever. Now, I'm not suggesting we necessarily pull it out right now, but if at some point in the future we decide, yes, discovery should have replication as well, do you see it being useful to then consider pulling this out of this spec so it sits in a common spec instead?
I think they're separate. I think they're different enough to have to have a distinct events for discovery versus schema registry.
Yeah, I thought the events might be spec specific, but I thought the definition of like the authority and stuff like that, and your definition of the different push and pull models and stuff, I thought that might be common, but I wasn't sure whether it's enough to pull into a separate spec or not.
Yeah, that might be common. The question is just where would that live?
I don't know. Okay, well, we don't have to decide it now. Just something
because
to think
the schema registry spec stands on its own, right? Also for purposes other than cloud events, and discovery is more wired to cloud events, but also that should be able to stand alone. So and then the question is, what is that? Do we create a cloud events replication spec that in itself is not necessarily useful?
That is the downside or the risk. Yes, I agree. Yeah. So like I said, don't even think about it now. Just something that popped in my head as I was reading.
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from. I don't think that's unreasonable but it's.
Like, Doug, you are thinking like of a template of like all the events that should be emitted during those kind of replications, and that are kind of abstract to match both discovery and schema registry?
No, not so much a common event as much as I was reading, I guess it was this section here, right? Because a lot of the stuff he talks about here about having an authority and then how that's used during replication and the push and pull model. As I was reading this, nothing in here jumped out at me as schema registry specific. It all seemed like a useful general purpose mechanism that
Yes.
we could reuse in the discovery spec. And that's why I thought,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's pull it out and have a common spec that both the discovery and schema registry can then point to.
Yeah, I mean, that would, I think it would be great, but it would be like, would that spec be useful in its own right?
Maybe not, I don't know. It depends on how we write it, right? I don't know. But like I said,
Yes,
I don't
like
have to,
everything.
yeah, we don't have to decide now. It's just, I guess I was more curious to know whether it's an insane idea that I can think
No.
about later or just completely drop it. And it sounds like you're saying maybe think about it later, which is fine.
Yeah, but we should really consider it. I know that for discovery we need to have replication, or I mean that's something that I know already that we will need that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea is the same. Where so one thing I already know for discovery that we will need is a CRUD API,
mm-hmm.
Which we currently don't have, where it should be possible for you to walk up to an endpoint where you publish events and basically fill the discovery service that lives inside of that endpoint. So assuming that you are just a client, it should be possible. So you're just a publisher and you have no ability to go and host somewhere a discovery service, then you should be able to declare to that endpoint, hey, I'm going to raise the following 5 events to you. And to do that declaration, you need to have some CRUD endpoint where you can go and say, no, I'm going to create a little package of events for you here, and here they are. And that's effectively the service document that we have for discovery. Editing that will be a useful mechanism. And then once you have these service documents, then being able to propagate those out to another service through a replication mechanism will also be useful.
Right. Okay.
So concrete example, you have a or half concrete example. You have a line of business application, some ERP or CRM system. You have a client to that, which is an app, and then the app goes and says, I want to go and publish 5 events, and puts that into the event broker of that system. And now that system wants to go and raise events, but it wants to raise events into a completely different realm. Like, so, you go out of the ERP system, now you go into like Azure or Knative or whatever, but then you have some UX, and in that UX, you want to have a drop-down box that says, give me all the events that are available for subscription, right? That world over there doesn't know about your candidate list of events unless you propagate that over, which means that service document somehow needs to go and flow. So the problem is exactly the same as we have here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Klaus, you came off mute.
Yeah, I just I like that Clemens called it the document. So far we just have an API, and I think such a document format for this would also be quite useful, as you can also store it, for example, in a GitHub repository together with the application.
Yeah. So I think of the service object that we currently have in the discovery spec. That's the document.
Right. Okay. Because I think at one point we actually talked about some sort of CRUD operations or something like that, and I think we may have pulled it because we were afraid we were trying to boil the ocean or something like that. So it's interesting. It's coming back around. So. Okay, so back to this one. So we're looking like we have we'll ask for 1 more week of reviews. Anything else we want to bring up on this one? My only other question, Clemens, was why do you have UTC in here? Why do you have the type?
Oh, why do I have UTC in that type?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, I know it's not quite the same thing as saying string, but it came across to me as, we don't say description string. So why do we say created time UTC as opposed to just created time? And then down here say must be UTC.
Because otherwise it's not absolutely blatantly obvious when anyone's reading it. I would say, having seen enough places where people see created time and say, okay, I'll put my local time, and they're not going to read that description, where we can be as clear as possible. I'm all for that, assuming we really want the timestamp to be in UTC rather than, you know, our timestamp type allows effectively date time offsets. So identifying an instant in time, so you can get to the UTC, but also saying, well, it's UTC +1 where this happened to occur. But I'm perfectly fine with it being just UTC.
Yeah, so the reason for that is really clarity, because we have been having issues with confusion on what the time zone might be. So it might be habitual, but I also derive that from something, and I'm just trying to find it.
Well, obviously it was there before. You don't need to worry about it too much. It just jumped out at me because it does feel a little inconsistent that none of our other specs do that.
You're probably right.
So we should probably be consistent either direction. So just something to think about. Okay, so we don't need to rat hole on that. Anything else on this one before we move on? Give people one more week. Oh gosh, Klaus. Just to torture me even more. I love it. Oh, good. John can't talk. His internet's unstable. Okay, so let's go quick. Okay, so this is the last one that Slinky really wanted us to get to today for him. He wanted to make some changes for some additional test cases. It seemed like pretty mindless little obvious simple things here. Anybody? This is for testing the SQL language. Anybody see any issue with him adding these test cases?
No, it's great.
Yeah, I figured it's no big deal. Any objection to approving?
No.
Okay. Hold on. And Clemens, this is the last one before the other topic that you want to bring up. Do you want to
Yeah,
talk
it's
about
good.
Yeah,
Clemens.
from the security issue.
No.
Or,
we got this one.
No. Oh, this one.
Yeah.
That's just I'm just introducing the operation IDs. There are some. If you don't have an operation ID in Open API spec, the some code generators start becoming creative, and the creative unfortunately looks like shit, and so therefore having a operation ID is usually better.
Okay. If we do this change, do we need to change anything in the spec itself?
No.
Okay, just want to double check. Okay, any objection then to approving this one?
Nope.
Okay, I got a note from Remy. Anybody else? All right, cool. Before we get to another topic that Clemens want to talk about, any of these issues down here or PRs down here that we should have been talking about, but I didn't realize we're ready to go. I don't think they are. Okay, in that case, Clemens, you wanted to talk about security or something like that, right?
Yeah, I want to talk about security briefly. So we have I think for interoperability, it's going to be somewhat inevitable that we deal a bit with security for push delivery. So for our subscriptions, we already have this notion of these the OAuth credentials and the refresh token credentials, which we put into that's where I have an AI left to put that into the spec, which is already in the Open API definition. Yeah, so in the subscription, if we go in the subscription spec, in the subscription Open API, at the bottom of that, Yeah, there's this refresh token credential, the access token credential, etc. So I thought that would be sufficient, and I have now been informed that that's probably not sufficient, because the security folks are fairly insistent, and that's kind of from both sides of the aisle from two larger organizations. So I'm tending to start to believe it, that they want authentication to the security service, and then also to bring credentials for acquiring the access token to the target service. Meaning, you first go to an access server that you authenticate with, or that you provide some access credentials to, that says, here's a token to talk to your security service. And then you go and take that token to the security service, and then present that token to the security service plus the token or credential information for the target service that you want to go and talk to. And then you get an access token, which then will allow you to push to the target. I just want to put that on the table, and say that that's what's happening to us here in the discussions that specifically Klaus and I are having with our respective security folks, that if we are bringing updates to this, that your brains don't break. But we believe that this is necessary to go and extend and unfortunately make it a little more complicated than it is.
But isn't something like, sorry if I missed it before, because like it's basically talking about like the OAuth systems.
Yes.
Well, you could imagine doing just certificate authentication, or there's many other securities that could be added. So as like our spec should, I don't think we should go into those kind of culprits.
Well, the question is how interoperable do you want to be? So cert, I can tell you one thing: certificate authentication is in many systems something that just doesn't scale.
The thing is, my fear there is, depending on which security team you will speak with, they'll have different requirements, and that's the way they are. And like that's kind of the people I talk with. So I can think about other big company who probably will have a different view than Microsoft and like the two that you were saying. So for me, as much as we can abstract in the pure spec is good. Then what they ask you, I'm fine with it. That's the way they implement, but I do understand also your point saying, yeah, but if you want interoperability, you'll have to be able to talk with like the two security team you're talking about. But I also need to talk with other security teams that will probably have a different point of view or different system or way to implement it.
Yeah, I mean the way how this is presented. So I'm mostly just saying that there will probably be a PR here that's going to complement this. It's based on an existing RFC. So we're still within the realms of the OAuth 2 model, and that doesn't mean that you have to use it.
Yeah, and because otherwise we can pull many different RFCs that define a different type of security and way of implementing. So I don't know how much we want to pull them in. That was my question. But I should have said that before, like on that PR that you are showing. So I'm not. I'm a little bit late in the game to say that. So I'm sorry if I.
Oh, that's already checked in.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that. I'm like, I don't remember when we did that, so I'm like, okay, it's. I should have voiced that at that time, but I think yeah, it can make sense. It's just I'm just scared that we are put into many round of those kind of stuff where it has like little value on the global purpose of the group, I would say. But
So I just want to put that on present that as something that we will have to go and probably deal with more, or then have to decide that we want to go and scope this out. It goes into security is always a rat hole, and so we'll have to think about how we're going to go and deal with this. Interoperability is going to be very difficult without this.
yeah,
Because most of the discussion, and this is just what I want to do is I want to get some visibility into like the work on the collaboration that happens kind of on the front lines around this, where we're literally spending half of the time, if not more, in those discussions, which are very lengthy, on how security might work, and without that agreement on the security front, which is leaning completely where we are insisting that it leans completely on OAuth and OpenID to connect to some degree, without having a figured out model, it's going to be very difficult to practically make these subscriptions work for complex systems.
yeah.
So my belief is that somehow we need to have that in the spec, in the subscriptions model, but because of that additional complexity that comes into this, with now there's another token exchange, I kind of do wonder whether we put this into this spec per se, or whether we're going to make an amendment, like an extra spec that says, and here's how you do the security thing. So I just want to give you some insight into the debate that we're having between two fairly large companies, and the difficulties that we're having in kind of making things match to each other, and in no small part that is really because of the security stuff. So it will be important for us all, I think, to do some security work here. And that also might mean that some of you may have to eventually find some expert in that field if you are not.
Yeah, because I share similar concerns to what Remy's bringing up. And to be honest, when this stuff was checked in, I kind of ignored it because I was going to wait until it actually hit the spec before I raised any possible concerns. So because I'm concerned about us mandating one particular model. So for example, I'm not sure this model right here fits in with something like GitHub, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want to preclude, one of the more popular things out there today from using our specs.
Yeah.
Despite it being owned by Microsoft. So anyway.
What? No, this is all OAuth.
Understood.
Yeah, but GitHub, their main API is usually not using OAuth.
So anyway, just something to think about. Okay.
GitHub is Microsoft, so
yeah.
That was low.
So Clemens, I think you shouldn't be allowed to do any more PRs until you convince GitHub to support cloud events natively.
That sounds fair.
I think it's perfectly fair.
Yeah.
So there we go. Okay, so we've been duly warned about a PR possibly coming our way.
Yes, something will come, and we'll have to figure out how we're going to go and do this. And I'm thinking it might be a complementary thing, rather than burying that into the subscription spec, because there will be it will get complicated. That's my feeling, and I don't want to burden the main spec.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what the PR looks like and see what people's reaction is. Okay. Any questions or are there additional comments for Clemens on that topic? All right. In that case, in the minute or so we have left, where was it? Oh, there it is. John, are you able to talk, or is your internet still bad?
Hopefully I can talk. So I've had an action item for several weeks now of looking at how we do versioning around the specification, well, the multiple specifications and what that means for branches and things. And that also affects your PR around repository layout, which I will have a look at. I've made a note to do so. So I finally started writing a doc today to sort of outline, well, what's wrong with the status quo? Most of the page you're looking at now is just copied from GitHub. But so far I've got as far as, well, can we agree on what we want to get out of whatever versioning scheme we come up with? And can we think about what we disagree with at the moment? I think I've probably got that as read only. Oh, could you just check whether you can add a comment, Doug? Because if you can, hopefully anyone else can. Oh, you can even go straight for editing. Right, well, that's fine. So I'm hoping if we can agree on some goals and agree with where things are problematic at the moment, then I can go off, and if folks would like to join me or suggest other folks I should rope in, we can start coming up with some actual proposals. But I didn't want to go too far without some buy-in that this was even in slightly the right direction.
Okay. Well, since it was just put out there today, obviously people haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So hopefully by next week, people will review it. I definitely will myself. And then we can put it on the agenda for next week's call. Does that sound fair?
Yep, absolutely. All I wanted to check today was, does it make sense for folks to have a look? Does this look like the kind of thing we want to do in order to get in the right direction? It's sort of 3 steps before any meaningful progress.
Yep, understood. Okay, so everybody please look at this doc when you get a chance. Any quick questions for John, since we're at the top of the hour? Okay, in that case, Lance, I think you're the only one I missed in terms of attendance.
Nope,
You
I'm
there?
here too. It's Christian.
Oh, Christian.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Christian, got it. Thank you. And Lance, okay. What was I going to say? Oh, okay. So yeah, if you don't care about the Discovery Interop call, you're free to go. Last time I checked, there were no topics for Discovery Interop. Is there anything people want to talk about there? Other than nag ourselves? Are we actually going to do interop testing? Yes, no?
I made a little progress during KubeCon, but like really little. And I hope to do a little bit more in next week, basically.
Okay. Clemens, how's your stuff coming?
I have a working prototype for discovery and subscriptions and all those things, but I haven't done the work on, like, I haven't done the client work on validation of your scenarios yet.
Okay.
And that's because of the other work that I'm doing.
Yep. Yep. Day jobs. Yep. Okay. So it sounds like we're still sort of in this weird limbo state. Okay. So I guess just as people find time, please do it. 'Cause I am kind of worried that it feels like we're stalling a little. And the best way to I think make progress on these things is to get the code up and running, and then we'll find issues. I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun.
And I really think, like, during our office hours, when I did the demo of the Discovery Interop, like the smaller UI I did, I had some traction from people, like they maybe understood a little bit more the whole concepts. So yeah, I really think it can be a good engine to promote cloud events.
Yep, I agree. Okay. Well, I don't want to keep people on the phone if we're not going to talk about anything concrete. So just last check. Anybody have anything they want to talk about relative to the Discovery Interop?
No.
Okay. In that case, let's call it a day. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your week and a good weekend.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.